Great radio stations across the land, joepags.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email. It's all right there, plus the live video feed. It's the Joe Pags Show. Glad to have you here. Really glad to have this guy on. It's Colonel Scott Caine. He's running for House of Representatives from the Space Coast of Florida. Also a foreign policy expert. He's from the U.S. Air Force. He's retired now. Colonel, I appreciate you. How are you?
I'm great, Joe. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. I appreciate you coming on. I got an email about you, and I said, well, wait a second. This guy I've got to talk to, because not only are you running for Congress, and I hope that you win. I think that you'll do very well in that area. I'm on in the area on WMMB, and they seem to be very like-minded with you and me. But also, you're a foreign policy expert, and TikTok, for some reason, is the thing that a couple of, I guess, middle-aged guys are going to talk about today. TikTok. For God's sakes. But the president has a problem with it. My daughters have it. I have a TikTok where I've posted a daddy-daughter dance video, but I didn't realize what the site was. And forgetting the fact that it's a bunch of people shaking their rear ends at the camera, which is really kind of what TikTok is, there's also a more incendiary thing going on behind the scenes. Can you, first and foremost, just in a very general sense, tell me and tell my listeners what the president's problem is with this format?
Well, Joe, what the Chinese have done is they've created this really cool system or an app that the kids love to use and love to play with. And I say kids, and anybody, a lot of people like to use it. And it kind of draws people in, but it's kind of like a cocaine. It's an addictive, fun app. But behind the scenes of the app is where the trouble is, because there are algorithms at play that more or less read your mind. They don't just look at the sites that you're going to, but they follow you, your behaviors, the facial recognition, and then there's a capability for the owner of the app to data mine and more or less produce a lot of information about you as a human being without you really knowing about it. That's what the president has a problem with.
And that's a major problem. For many people didn't even know this, but it's based in China. Is it owned at all by the Chinese government, or is it owned by a private entity in China? And I know that I've looked into this a little bit. I know that my activity does get filtered back through China somehow, which I don't think people knew this going in. So who owns it?
Well, it's owned by a private company in China. However, no, there's nothing really private about having a company in China, and that's the challenge. A couple things to think about there. First of all, any major company in China is going to have somebody from the Communist Party on their board,
right,
and kind of keep tabs on what they're doing and ensure they're following the policies of the Chinese Communist Party. Second, and more importantly, I believe, is that in 2017 they passed a national security law or an intelligence law that more or less requires any organization or person in China that the party wants to use for intelligence gathering to actually do that for them. So what that means is that any company in China is actually an arm of the state and is an arm of the Communist Party and can be used for intelligence gathering. So here you have a company that data mines from everything you're doing and has all kinds of data available. And now if they want to use that data, the Communist Party, the state can own it and use it for their advantage.
It is, again, Colonel Scott Caine running for election. What district is it, Scott?
It's District 8 in Florida. Thank you.
Okay, Florida District 8. Go and check out his website. I've got it on the screen here, CaineForCongress.com. CaineForCongress.com. And again, Space Coast of Florida. What's interesting to me is this thing seemed to come out of nowhere. We've known about Facebook since 2008, 2009. We've known about Twitter for about the same amount of time, which, by the way, I'm suspended on Twitter right now because I dared say hydroxychloroquine works. That's all I said. I'm suspended. So we've got those sites that we know about. Instagram is now owned by Facebook. I don't think a lot of people know that. And we've got some other sites coming up. How did TikTok come out of nowhere? Do we know? Because this, a year ago, I'd never heard of it. It was not an entity. Suddenly it's got 1 billion plus people who are on the format. Where did it come from? Do we know?
Well, I think it's one of those exponential explosion kind of things. And as you know, a lot of the 21st century technology does do that. Let's face it, Facebook kind of came out of nowhere and exploded.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, Instagram, Twitter, all those kind of things, they start fairly slowly, but because of the exponential growth you get, through those technological apps, it started slow and then it just started growing and has exploded. The second part of that I think is just as important is that there's so many things to keep our eye on
Yeah.
that it's it doesn't really jump out at you as a problem because it's just something that a bunch of kids are using, right?
Right.
And so we've got other fish to fry. We got Huawei to worry about, 5G, those things, and then all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, this TikTok thing is data mining on our kids and all of us that use it, and maybe it is a big problem. So I think that's what happened.
And they've got the kids so addicted to it, and frankly, some adults as well, that when the president said he's going to do something about it, they're freaking out. They're taking the side of TikTok, and they don't realize they're taking the side of the CCP. It's Colonel Scott Caine, retired from the U.S. Air Force. He's running for election, District 8 in Florida, the Space Coast. Go in and vote for him. He's running for Congress there. What's interesting about the 5G technology is it somehow tied in? I know that China tries to leverage itself and its power by trying to get countries, like they redid an entire port in Italy, and they were like, yeah, but you got to take our technology now. We did it for free, but now you've got to take all of our technology and let us do whatever we want to do here. And the fear when we have 5G technology from China, if they should win, and I hope they don't, is we have no idea what they're gathering on us. And that's really the overriding issue, right? If they can data mine everybody, gather information on everybody, they have a better chance to leverage us to get what they want. That's what we're worried about, yes?
Absolutely, that's what we're worried about. And with 5G, unlike 3G, 4G, where we were the leaders on the world stage producing that, China and Huawei are really out front right now. And so, what we should be concerned about is all those countries we normally partner with actually partnering with China and Huawei. And so then we lose that ability to interact with some of our allies and trading partners, and China jumps in instead. And then at the same time, not only are they interacting with our friends, but they're data mining on our friends, and then potentially data mining on us as well. So once again, another national intelligence, national security issue for us as Americans when we allow the Chinese development of this technology to outpace what we're doing.
The president wants them to sell the company, the Chinese company, to sell out of China. I think what people don't realize, and I've been to China, we adopted a child there, and I went on Google and looked up Tiananmen Square, and it said one guy died because of an accidental ricochet of a bullet. Now, you and I both know that what happened in Beijing back in the 80s was about 7,000 people were run over by tanks because they wanted freedom and liberty. That was squashed, and now China's Google, and Google gives into this. Facebook gives into this. Twitter gives into this. They allow the CCP to filter what it is that their residents see, what the citizens of China see. The citizens of China don't really know what's happening outside the border because it's such a totalitarian government system there. So with TikTok being based in China, TikTok clearly has to follow those same guidelines like you alluded to earlier. The CCP probably has somebody on the board controlling that organization. How do we stop something that's online, Scott, from getting in? How do we stop? Because it's virtual. I can go on my phone right now and see it. I can go on my internet, which I want to be open and free, and see TikTok. So how do we control that? How do we literally ban something in what we call an open society, knowing it's coming from a closed society? That's kind of complicated, but I wonder, how do you do that?
Well, I think that is very complicated, but once again, we're a free market kind of society, and then we can place rules on our sites back here as to what is allowed. Let's face it, there are things that Facebook, for instance, or Twitter can do, and so if we put a national security rule or law in place, I think we can hold people's feet to the fire. But
Yeah.
more importantly, I think the answer is as the president has been pushing is that if we bring it onto our shores, then now you can control what happens a whole lot better from the Chinese side. And as you pointed out, most Americans they've never interacted in a Chinese environment and don't realize the kind of freedoms we have here that they don't have in their country.
Right.
And China, as you said, is not a free country. They get to see what the Communist Party tells them that they can see, and from all facets of life. And we're also seeing it as it permeates over to Hong Kong right now, is that when they want to clamp down, they absolutely clamp down, and that's what we should be afraid of in our country, is that they're going to try to cause the same kind of effect by infiltrating some of our companies, some of our institutions, our upper learning institutions for sure,
Yeah.
with Confucian centers and those kind of things. So very, very scary to have the Chinese culture uh, pushed to the United States of America. And it's not. Let me say it again. It's not the Chinese culture so much as it is the Communist Party's culture.
Exactly right. It's Colonel Scott Caine running for U.S. House of Representatives, District 8, the great state of Florida. Make sure you go to CaineForCongress.com. It's Caine is how he spells his name. CaineForCongress.com. If TikTok were to sell to somebody outside of China, just for those who are watching and listening, just so that they fully understand this, that means we can now tell them, no, you can't redirect data to China. You can't redirect data to places that we don't know about. You can't give, some totalitarian party somewhere access to your 14-year-old's info. Those are the safeguards we're looking for, yes?
Absolutely, and let's face it, we've all seen the debates over whether or not Apple will or any other company will allow the FBI, for instance, to break into somebody's phone, and that's a debate that we'll have inside of our country. So it tells you how difficult it can be to force somebody to give up their data in the United States of America. Whereas the flip side in China is all they have to say is give it to us, and you have to give it to them. So that's why we want
Right.
it in the United States. We have liberty here. We have safeguards, and I think that is the hope is that to get that on shore here, because there are a lot of I don't know, 50 million Americans or whatnot are already addicted to TikTok.
Yeah, and it's at least that many, if not more. It is Colonel Scott Caine. Colonel, one last question, and it's kind of a general question, but I think that you probably have a decent answer, I would think. What does China want? Does China want the entire world to have the same system it has? Does it want the world to be China? Listen, our system is the best. You and I would agree to that. Anybody who's a real, liberty and freedom loving American would agree with that as well. But I'm not for us going to China and blowing them off the map until they do what we say. And I'm also not for us infiltrating them technologically to make them act like us. But it seems like they want to take over with their system. And again, I mentioned the port in Italy. They're building ports all over the place. They're revitalizing cities all over the place. But in doing that, they're also saying you've got to follow our rules. And those countries are capitulating. Is that what they want?
Well, I'm not certain that they really care whether or not we follow their rules. What they
Okay.
do want is they want to be the world leader. If you know your history, what you do is that they have 5,000 years of solid history. They were
Right.
world leaders in a lot of ways up until the mid 19th century, and then they had a century of humiliation where imperial powers dominated them. Coming out of World War II, their goal was to become the world leader again. And so, if you look at their name, it means Central Kingdom or Middle Kingdom. What that means is that they are kind of the center of their universe or our universe,
Yeah.
and they want to be the controlling factor on the planet. Does that mean that they care whether or not we take on their kind of culture or whatnot? No, but what they do want is to be able to control the economic and military influence around the world from their perspective. And by doing all these things, they do gain footholds everywhere they want so that they can be the world leader. By, I would say, as Michael Piltzer says in his book, 100-Year Marathon, by 2049.
Wow. It's Colonel Scott Caine, Caine for Congress.com. The word for, F-O-R, Caine for Congress.com. Go there right now. If you're listening in Melbourne, Florida on WMMB in the Space Coast, this could be your guy, and I hope that it is come this November. Colonel, thanks a million. Can we do it again?
We certainly can, Joe. Appreciate the opportunity to talk on your show.
You're very welcome. Let's do it very soon. We're back after this in the Joe Pag Show. Stay right here.